You have to talk about Jimmy Kimmel getting fired, right? It's absolutely delicious. Finally, one of these no talent losers gets what they deserve. Beautiful. We'll have a conversation about Tim Pool and old Benjamin Netanyahu and how everyone's a conspiracy theorist and how Tim is now reposting Nick Fuentes as the voice of reason. That's very interesting as well. And I guess we'll just have a look at the whole Charlie Kirk shooter fiasco in terms of text messages, photographs, angles of bullets, all this type of stuff. Before we do that, if you could maybe hit like, subscribe and share. Hit the old bell icon and get notified every time I do a new upload. I'd appreciate it. Cheers. Sinclair Broadcast Group will air a 1-hour tribute to Charlie Kirk across all ABC affiliated TV stations in place of Jimmy Kimmel's show, which has been pulled indefinitely. Sinclair is also calling for Jimmy Kimmel to make a public apology to the Kirk family and make a meaningful donation to Turning Point USA. Love it. Old Keith Olbermann had a nice little response where he said, "Burn in hell, Sinclair, along with Charlie Kirk." And that opens up the conversation of free speech and how do we feel about these left-wing lunatics being cancelled now? How do we feel about the people working in the education sector, working in the medical sector, working in the political sector, all having the rug pulled because of their public celebration of a man losing his life in front of 2 young children? I don't need to tell you what I think of that. It's beautiful. Yes, I am a free speech absolutist, but I just had this conversation with a buddy of mine recently. And, you know, when Donald Trump decided to run for president back in 2013/14, right around then, the left started to double and triple down. We know they're in control of the narrative and they have a grasp on media, social media, content creation, the news, what we watch on TV, what we consume on Netflix, what we see in the theatre. These people are scumbags and they didn't pull any punches when it came to MAGA or when it came to people of conservative thinking. They went after them hard. There's grandmothers that are locked up in prison for being at January 6th. There's police officers that are serving life in prison for doing their job and apprehending a criminal. You remember that kid with the MAGA hat that was standing up and you had the Native American lad getting up in his face and all he did was smirk and they tried to destroy his life. Fortunately, he was vindicated and the truth came out. But if it didn't, that kid's life was ruined forever. Kyle Rittenhouse put down 3 absolute vile animals that were trying to take his life and would probably have gone on to take somebody else's life or probably would have gone on to continue doing the vile shit to young kids that they were already arrested for. They tried to destroy Kyle Rittenhouse. They wanted him locked in prison. They wanted him dead. It's absolutely vile. Think of all the content creators or just normal Joe Soaps like myself who wanted to jump onto the internet and maybe talk a little bit about the news. Because of that stranglehold over the likes of this platform and Twitter and Facebook at the time, it was stripped away from you. You were banned, you were shadow banned, you were debanked, demonetized, you name it. And these people got to laugh and they got to sit back in their chairs and smile. But they're not smiling now because they crossed the Rubicon with the whole Charlie Kirk stuff and now they're getting what they deserve. So I'm not holding up my hands and saying free speech for everybody. I'm not doing it anymore. You know what? We'll take a little bit of a period where it's reciprocal, where there's repercussions for your actions, just like there has been for us for like 12 years. So Jimmy Kimmel, talentless hack who the network probably wanted to fire anyway, this was a great excuse and they gathered a little bit of virtue from the normal people out there who don't celebrate the death of men live on TV in front of their children. So I've got no sympathy for Jimmy Kimmel. Off you go, mate. You and Don Lemon, do your thing somewhere else. We're not putting up with it. I suppose we'll talk a little bit about Tim Pool reposting Nick Fuentes talking about he is the voice of reason now. I don't watch Tim Pool anymore. I dipped in last week after the tragedy that occurred and I watched a live stream. It was fine. It was grand. But when it comes to the conversation about the Israeli state having influence within the American Congress and the American political sphere, this dude is obviously compromised. I'm just going to be 100% honest from here on out. If you don't call out Israel for what they are doing in Gaza, then there's something up with you, right? If you don't call out Israel for their incessant pressure on American political figures, there's something wrong with you. Forget about the conspiracy theory that's flying around out there. So the likes of Tim Pool and the likes of The Quartering, who I really do like his content, they're coming out and they're saying, listen, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, Max Blumenthal, Tucker Carlson, they're all gone off the reservation. These people are crackpot conspiracy theorists because they're saying that the Jews killed Charlie Kirk. Now that within itself is a conspiracy theory because not one of these content creators / broadcasters has said anything of this sort. And I'm not going to play games here. There is insinuations, there is links that are being put out there tenuously, but nobody has said that. There's no evidence of that. There's plenty of evidence in recent times of Charlie being more critical of Israel. That's it. That's it. And there's evidence out there of Israeli lobbyists, Israeli billionaires, and Benjamin Netanyahu himself being really upset with Charlie. So that's a fact. The likes of Tim Pool, I don't know what's going on there. Back in April of this year, Tim Pool had a private roundtable meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. And the topic on the table was the criticism of Israel and what is going on in Gaza at the moment. And how Tim Pool, with such a large audience, I guess, could help influence them and this narrative in a more positive way. You can take whatever you need to take from that private meeting between Tim Pool and Benjamin Netanyahu in terms of combating the criticism of Israel. Sounds very similar to the meetings that Charlie Kirk was having out in the Hamptons, or possibly even the invitation that was put over to himself from Benjamin Netanyahu to pop over and have another little conversation about how to direct the narrative war. But basically in the aftermath of that Tim Pool meeting, he starts talking about Israel derangement syndrome, and he starts condemning everybody, as in Tucker, Candace, Eliza Schaefer, Max Blumenthal. Anybody who has questions, they have to be condemned. Again, nobody has come out publicly and said Israel are responsible for what happened to Charlie Kirk. We all know and have been told by the FBI who's responsible. This was something that I talked about in my last video. I really don't get how right-wing conservatives want to put energy into debunking the likes of Candace Owens and Tucker, who are literally just talking about their personal relationship with Charlie Kirk before he passed away, and how he did have questions about the influence, the evident influence of Israel in America. I don't know how you can talk about that and look at the text messages that were released by the FBI yesterday in terms of Tyler Robinson and how he confessed conveniently to his boyfriend/girlfriend yoke, and not question it with the same venom that you seem to be going after Candace and Tucker with. It is really bizarre to me. And in fairness to Jeremy Habley from The Quartering, over on his second channel, he talked about Ian Carroll, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. He said, listen, there's a narrative out there. I don't think he said that they said that Israel were responsible, but there is a narrative and a connection being put out into the sphere. He wanted to see evidence. He was all about the evidence. He said, listen, we have all the evidence that Tyler Robinson is the shooter and this was pre-planned, and that he was a left-wing Antifa activist who affiliated with transgender people. All this matches up perfectly for who killed Charlie Kirk. Except for there's so many questions and such a lack of evidence in terms of that whole thing. And it's always about asking questions. If you have read the text interactions from Tyler Robinson to his boyfriend/girlfriend, and you saw that there was no timestamps, and you saw that ChatGPT and many other AI affiliated programs have said that this really does feel like it was manufactured or written in a really strange way. Everybody knows that that interaction, that text interaction, is fake. I'm sorry, everybody knows it. And if you're not using your platform like Tim Pool or The Quartering or these people, if you're not using it to question the FBI, who yesterday in front of Congress said that Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic any children into the United States or for any other person, then there's something seriously up if you're not questioning that narrative. I'm not going to get into all the other conspiracies that are out there in terms of angle of bullet and this person making hand signals. There's so much out there. But I would like to see the conservative side of content creators, instead of getting triggered after your private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, instead of getting triggered at Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson just for making connections or even just putting that out there. No one said that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, even though they have the most elite assassination department of their intelligence agency and have ended the lives of more people, and that's just public knowledge. You can go Wikipedia that shit. Even though they're so proficient in actually taking the life of people incognito, No one's making that connection per se. So you're sitting back and you're trying to digest all this information, and you're looking to your content creators, you're looking to the people that you trust. They see the interactions and these fake text messages. They see this weird story about guns and being hidden in forests, and I was waiting in a car randomly to go back and get it. Almost like a written confession in text form. Really strange. And I think these content creators would routinely be pushing back against the likes of the FBI or the CIA or even the government, whether it be right or left, in terms of tangible information that seems to be manipulated, but not in this case. Not in this case. Jimmy Kimmel played into the left-right dichotomy and tried to say it was a conservative MAGA kid who shot Charlie Kirk. And is it that fact, is it that triggering that has put all the conservative outlets into meltdown to push back harder on the trends? Because that is a thing. These freaks are out there and they're going into schools and they're taking lives. Is it that, and anything else that's floating around on the outside of that just is unacceptable? Or is it something more sinister? Is it private roundtable meetings and conversations about how to win the narrative war? I don't know. Let me know down below what you think of all that, and if any of it made sense. Hit like, subscribe and share. Cheers.